Welcome back again to another YouTube video, and this is my series on the planets. So today I am going to discuss Mercury. Mercury, the one that we all seem to know about because of Mercury retrograde. Yes, Mercury does go retrograde 3 times a year. It will more or less always be in the same uh, element. So if it's like air, they'll all be air. If it's earth, they'll all be earth. So that's something to rely on. Interestingly, about Mercury retrogrades, if it's in an air element, you'll find that you're kind of struggling with getting grounded, falling asleep, staying asleep, things like that. You tend to feel a little wired. If it's in an earth element, you might be extra tired and have a hard time getting moving. If it's in a fire element, you might just have too much output and not enough opportunity to really do anything with it. And then if it's water, you could be feeling overly emotional. But Mercury is the planet that is responsible for our mental faculties. So Mercury really and truly is not just like how we take in information, but it's how we put out information. It's our mind, it's communication. And on a smaller level, it's technology. It'd be like micro level, whereas, you know, Uranus is more responsible for macro level technology. So when we have like a Mercury retrograde, like we'll notice our phone is glitchy, or the worst case scenario, something in your neighborhood might happen, but it's not typically like a global thing. Like if we had a global outage, that would be a Uranus thing, like a solar flare or something that would affect like on a massive scale. Mercury just kind of affects like, you know, your local community. I mean, it's, you know, third house, right? And sixth house, third house, right? Did I get that right? Let me just make sure. Yes, Gemini. Third house, Gemini, sixth house, Virgo. So these are the houses and signs it's synonymous with. And so, yeah, third house is communication. And so when we are looking at a chart and we're reading Mercury in a chart, we're really looking to like which sign it's in and which house it's in. So we look at the sign. So like if you have a Mercury in Gemini, okay, it's pretty much at home there, and it's going to be an unfiltered communicative process. If let's say it's in, I don't know, Libra, it'll be a more diplomatic, balanced process, the way that you deliver information and receive it. If it's in, because Venus rules Libra also, people would like listening to you. Taurus is the same. Like people are gonna like to listen to you. If you have a Mercury in Taurus, people are gonna be like, oh, I really value what they have to say. So that's kind of like how you do the math. And then you would look at the house, and then this would also create yet another level of that relationship to the planet. Mercury is an interesting one because it's kind of an important one in terms of relationships. Like whenever looking at synastry, you really want to make sure you don't have a poor relationship between your Mercuries, because this tends to cause a long-term friction in how you communicate, and communication is essential in a relationship. Some other examples of how Mercury can play out, like I have Mercury in Pisces. I'm very visionary. I'm very big picture. I can see it all and it makes sense to me in a very fluid way. And there's also like a very poetic way that I would communicate. Like I like to write and speak in a way that it's like storytelling. So Mercury in Pisces, that's art, right? So like the way that I communicate it is going to be done in a way that is very, again, artistic and not so choppy or direct, or that would be more like a Mercury in Aries. You might have a really direct approach to communication. Or let's say you have a Mercury in Sag, and then it's like open mouth, insert foot, right? You're just like, I should have thought before I spoke, right? Like, so Mercury really defines how we communicate with others, our style, our nature, and then like how we take in information and the things that we value in terms of our communication style. When Mercury is passing around the chart, it moves pretty fast. In fact, Mercury is pretty much always seen in the sky, like either right behind the sun or right in front of the sun. And the only reason it never really fully gets too far away is because of all the retrogrades. Like if Mercury didn't go retrograde, like Mercury would always be running circles around the sun. But Mercury goes retrograde 3 times a year. So if it's like ahead, well, then it's going to station retrograde and then go backwards for a while, and then the sun will catch up and so on and so forth. So this is what keeps the sun kind of always in that same space in terms of like where they're about in the sky. And a lot of people, I'd say about 50% of the charts I look at have this sort of, well, sort of, it is actually a sun conjunct Mercury in the chart, either loosely or directly conjunct as a result of these two always being kind of toe to toe in the sky. And usually what this means is because the sun is so potent and it tends to kind of burn out what it touches, because it has this like overpowering effect, people who have this conjunction, Mercury conjunct the sun, tend to not really be in their voice as much as they'd like to, because the sun kind of takes over. The sun, intuitively, I really thought, and this might be the case for some people, that like a Mercury conjunct the sun would actually be more along the lines of like an amplified expression of communication. But not more often than not, it's actually the opposite. So, and of course, this could have a lot to do with like how tight the conjunction is. Is Mercury coming up on the sun, moving away from the sun? Is it towards it or away from it? All of these things kind of play a role. But Mercury, like I said, is the planet of communication. Now, it moves so fast in the chart that it's not, none of the inner planets really have this intense effect. They have an acute effect, but they don't have this like long-term drawn out effect on us because they just move too quickly. Like Mercury retrogrades can be a bitch, but from start to finish, even with the shadow, it's like what, 6 weeks? Like it's really not that much time. Whereas like, a Neptune transit can last 1.5 years. So you see the difference, right? And really and truly, like if we're looking to make a shift on our Mercury, we would be looking to see if one of the outer planets was going to aspect our natal Mercury. And when the outer planet comes to make an aspect, conjunction, square, opposition, trine, like all of these things, then there's an opportunity to work on that communication, to have a breakthrough in that communication. And boy, can you have some amazing insights when an outer planet transits the mind. So Uranus, especially, very innovative, breakthrough type energy, whereas like obviously Pluto would create just this painful realization only to be followed up with a rebirth and in a totally different approach to how you think. Saturn on Mercury is just going to be like, hey, it's time to take responsibility on this. Like it'll ask you to change your thinking in a way that's like going to reward you at the end of it, right? Like if you just think this way instead, I will show you the benefits of that right away. And, Neptune, I just finished that one. So Neptune on Mercury actually led to, unfortunately for me, like a lot of chaos because there's so much confusion. So you can really just feel like you're kind of out at sea, not really knowing what's going on for a long time mentally, and like where to put your mental faculty. And so that was tough. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It wasn't painful, but it definitely was tough in the sense that like I couldn't see in front of me to know how to gauge or to create or to plan or to build or any of those things. So it's really, if we're looking to change the way our Mercury operates, obviously we can change our thinking at any time, but the bigger breakthroughs are obviously going to happen as a result of outer planets transiting that Mercury. Mercury on its own is going to only cause more acute stuff. Another kind of common theme with Mercury retrogrades is the fact that like it drudges up the past, people in our brains from the past, as well as like dreams. Like I noticed there's a big theme with dreams and like people coming forward. And then also like, this is something I've really observed with Mercury retrogrades. Let's say you have something new going on in your life and you're trying to build on that newness. When Mercury goes retrograde, it can actually pull that person or that thing kind of away and make it a little bit more inaccessible because it's new. But then like everyone from your past is fully available. Everything from your past is like right there ready for you. I've noticed that a lot. So when Mercury goes retrograde, you're like, hey, I was just getting started with whatever, and now all of a sudden like our plans keep falling through, or I can't make the class that I want to take or whatever. It's just because it's new, you know, and a Mercury retrograde is a time to revisit old contracts, old relationships, old, you know, things that need to be cleaned up and set into motion. In fact, they always say don't start anything new under Mercury retrograde, but Mercury retrogrades are really, really perfect time to take something that you're like, I'm tired of this going wrong. Let's just fix it and just move on. It's especially good time to take an old issue, an old contract, and clean it up, revise it, and move on. So yeah, that would be Mercury. Mercury, like I said, when he moves around the chart, doesn't really do a whole lot. But when he's aspected, that's where we see a lot of the shifts. So I hope that was helpful. As usual, if you are interested in having your horoscope looked at, we can talk about it, especially if you're having a Mercury transit and you want to understand it more. My email is down below. And otherwise, guys, I will see you next time. Bye.